I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and a little bit ago I made a video talking about why Jurassic Park managed to become the dinosaur franchise in Hollywood. How come, when it comes to Hollywood movies, it went from there being all sorts of dinosaur movies made throughout the decades to suddenly Jurassic Park comes along, and from that point onward it's only Jurassic Park in terms of dinosaurs, other than a bunch of direct-to-video knockbusters and other things such as that. Where did all the dinosaurs movies go, and why was it only Jurassic Park that survived? If you want to know my full extended thoughts, go follow the link and you can hear them there. But the summary is that basically Jurassic Park, in addition to just being a really good movie, also had the advantage of being a revolutionary movie, where basically it changed the entire cinematic landscape, and since there are so few movies that can lay claim to that, naturally that's going to make it a very tough act to follow. So a lot of people just chose not to, or if they did decide to make dinosaur movies, as mentioned, it was on the direct-to-video market. Recently, however, Universal decided to end the Jurassic series with Jurassic World Dominion, leaving a gap that any other dinosaur movie could potentially fill. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to be as revolutionary as the original Jurassic Park, but you don't necessarily have to be revolutionary in order to be good. A lot of people, or at least some people, were hoping 65 would be the movie that took that new space. Unfortunately, yeah, 65 is not going to make it. I don't think it'll make a lot of people's worst movies of 2023 list come the end of the year, mostly because I don't think anyone will even remember it by then. But it's not like that's the only option. Now, naturally, I would encourage Hollywood to keep trying new IPs with dinosaurs in them. Just because 65 didn't work doesn't mean other original stories with dinosaurs can't work. But I can't exactly make a whole video talking about stuff that doesn't exist yet. Even if I did, Hollywood is only interested in stuff that already exists as opposed to making anything new. So, what kind of dinosaur media that already exists could potentially be adapted? That's what I've been thinking about over the weekend, and I think I have some potential answers. Let's start things off with Marvel and DC, because those are the movie franchises, originally comic franchises of course, that people are the most invested in these days. What do they have that they can potentially bring to the table? Well, Marvel has Devil Dinosaur, a character who, for the longest time, they haven't really been sure what to do with. There was an original run of comics that were really interesting, but after that, it kind of felt like he was sort of in and out, referenced here and there, but never really, like I said, they didn't really know what to do with him. They couldn't even decide if he existed in the distant past, like the original comic said, or if he was on another planet, or in an alternate dimension, or what. But Devil Dinosaur certainly has a loyal following. Of course, recently a series premiered on Disney Plus called Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, but, well, I tried watching the first episode of it because it was uploaded to YouTube. I couldn't make it through myself. It just wasn't speaking to me. And it's not because it wasn't made for me. I have become a fan of things that weren't made for me in the past. Let's not forget, I partly grew this channel at the beginning by doing My Little Pony reviews. But as far as this series goes, I can't quite put my finger at the moment on what is driving me away from it, but it's just not clicking with me. And even if it was, I can tell you right now, Devil Dinosaur isn't even one of the primary focuses of the series. He's there, but he's not really that important as far as I can tell, or at least as far as I've seen. I mean, heck, you can even tell that from the graphic for the title. Look at this. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. Very clear where the focus is. Should the MCU ever decide to adapt the series, because I'm pretty sure the cartoon is not part of the MCU, I would personally prefer if they went back to those original comics that had that sort of Robert E. Howard dark fantasy vibe to them. But I also know full well that's not going to happen. And even if it did, the MCU has fallen far from grace recently, so maybe it's better if they just leave Devil Dinosaur out of it. As for DC, they don't necessarily have any major dinosaur characters per se, but they do have Dinosaur Island, which made its debut in The War That Time Forgot, itself part of a collection of weird war stories that put these different sci-fi, fantasy, and horror twists on World War II. You know how James Gunn recently announced that the Creature Commandos were going to be part of the DC movie reboot? They got their start there as well. And Dinosaur Island is exactly what it sounds like. It's this lost island in the Pacific where prehistoric life still exists. And in The War That Time Forgot specifically, you get soldiers winding up there while fighting in the Pacific Theater, and, well, there's a lot to it. It's hard to summarize the series in total because it's a very episodic series. But the beauty of it is, if they decided to introduce it into the new DC movies, it doesn't matter if they started off in World War II or Vietnam or the modern day or whatever, because all they have to do is establish Dinosaur Island exists, and from that point on, it can be a place where other characters go to. I mean, I don't know what the odds are of that happening, but then again, this new slate of DC movies contains a lot of stuff I would not have necessarily predicted before seeing it myself. So I would say unlikely, but not completely impossible. Like I said, the Creature Commandos are part of this whole thing, and they showed up on Dinosaur Island in their series, so who knows? There are two titles in particular that I know you guys would like to see because I keep seeing you bring them up, and those titles are TUROK and Carnosaur. Now, Carnosaur, in case you don't know, it's not the Roger Corman movie. It shares a title, it's technically an adaptation, but very much an in-name only adaptation. The original book is this pulpy horror novel that you would swear was plagiarizing Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park book, if not for the fact that it was published first, and years before. In fact, people still debate today whether or not Crichton was the one who plagiarized, but there's never been any evidence one way or the other. So I'm not saying that he did or he didn't. Either way, though, Carnosaur is a very infamous novel, one that has quite a following among those who have read it. I'm currently reading it for Kaiju Lit Circle, and I know that there are a lot of people who would like to see it done right, given the proper Hollywood treatment. I think it could be interesting, although the fact is that if you want it to be book accurate, it would have to be rated R. And despite what people thought was going to happen after Deadpool was released in 2016, R-rated movies are still not necessarily that prominent in Hollywood anymore. Not to say they don't exist, of course, but the R-rated movies that do exist generally are low-budget affairs, which makes it easier for them to make back their budget and make a profit in return. And that's not something you can really do with Carnosaur if you want it to turn out well. We've already got the low-budget Carnosaur. Roger Corman saw to that. If you want a big-budget Carnosaur, it would wind up getting watered down. And if you wanted it to be hard R, then the budget would wind up getting slashed, and that would have an effect. So yeah, Carnosaur, as interesting as it might be to see, would not be an easy one to convince the studios of. Although there is still TUROK. TUROK could certainly be interesting, although I have to ask the question, which version of TUROK? You see, there's the original comic book version of TUROK, who was a Native American or indigenous person, or whatever the term is now, living at some point in America's past. I'm not entirely sure if it was pre-colonial, post-revolution, or sometime during Western expansion, But he winds up in a valley where dinosaurs exist, and it's unclear if it's just a lost canyon or if he traveled through time or to another reality or something. That's the plot actually for the animated film Turok: Son of Stone, which was supposed to launch this new modern version of Turok that never actually got off the ground. The movie has its issues. I should probably talk about it at some point. But anyway, that's the original Turok. But the other Turok, the Turok that my generation actually knew him as, was set in the future where he was still a Native American, but he used futuristic weapons to hunt dinosaurs on other planets. Now, that's why I ask which Turok, because they're two very different interpretations of the same character. If you focus on one, you run the risk of alienating fans of the other and vice versa, and I think it would be difficult to try melding them both together. But then again, maybe you could just pick one version to do, and it wouldn't matter so long as the movie itself is good. So once you figure out which version to work with, as long as it's a good movie, it could be interesting. Okay, but what else is there? Can we look to any dinosaur media that might be a little more obscure but still has enough of a fandom that you could take it to a studio and say, we can work with this and make millions? Well, there are some that come to mind. The first, actually, that sprang to my mind personally is Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs is one of those series that kind of fell off a lot of people's radar, largely because it's never really gotten a proper media release in the DVD and streaming era. However, I was a huge fan of it as a kid. It aired a little before my time, but I watched it in syndication, and man, that show was my jam. The basic premise is that there is a counter-Earth in our solar system called Reptilon, where dinosaurs evolved into humanoid beings. And on this planet, two warring factions, the good dinosaucers and the evil tyrannos, have decided to bring their fight to Earth. And they each have the ability to transform into more prehistoric versions of themselves. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds an awful lot like Transformers, just with dinosaurs. I agree, but on the other hand, it's Transformers with dinosaurs. What is there not to like about that? The theme song, of course, it's a very simple theme song. The main thing is just a hook, but if you listen to it, it gets stuck in your head for the rest of your life. But there's a lot to appreciate about Dinosaurs. One thing I personally appreciate is that it doesn't draw the line of good and evil to separate herbivores and carnivores. You know how it is. Plant eaters good, meat eaters bad. That's the way it usually goes, but not on this show. The leader of the Dinosaurs is an Allosaurus, and yes, the leader of the Tyrannos is a T-Rex, but still, two carnivores leading the respective sides. Both sides have sauropods, both sides have ceratopsians, both sides have aquatic marine reptiles or flyers. It's a good mix. You don't go into it thinking, well, crud, all my favorite dinosaurs are evil. I don't like that. No, some of the dinosaurs you might like are actually good. And here's an interesting little thing that could make it even better. Throughout the series, they also encounter still living dinosaurs on Earth. Now, of course, back then, dinosaurs had a very particular look that they weren't going to deviate from. It was a pre-Jurassic Park series. However, if it were to be updated for the modern day, this is an opportunity to potentially have our cake and eat it as well. You see, since the dinosaurs and tyrannos come from another planet, you could technically use the excuse that they are, for all intents and purposes, aliens that just happen to look like dinosaurs, and use that excuse to, when they become dinosaurs, like proper monstrous dinosaurs, have them be those old school Hollywood kaiju-style dinos, but have the dinosaurs they meet on Earth be the scientifically accurate ones. You can have both of them coexisting, and there would be no problem about it. You have a built-in excuse for the scientifically inaccurate ones that time. If you want to get really experimental, though, we could do Primal Rage. Now, yes, I am a Primal Rage fan. That's just one of the figures I got back when the action figure line was brand new. The others are packed away, nice and safe. But Primal Rage would be a very interesting one. For those of you who don't know, Primal Rage is basically Mortal Kombat with dinosaurs. And again, much like the previous entry, Mortal Kombat with dinosaurs, how can you go wrong? It's definitely an interesting one. But what would make it experimental is the fact that you would have to have the dinosaurs be the main focus. There's been a lot of talk recently about whether or not you could do a kaiju movie without humans in it, or at least with as little human interaction as possible. Primal Rage, while not necessarily a kaiju work per se, could be a testing ground for that. Because you'd have to focus on the dinosaurs. They are the main characters. You can't just shove them to the background. They need to be in the foreground because they're the ones with goals. They're the ones with motivations. They're the ones with arcs. They're the ones who control the fate of the world depending on who wins and who loses in their fight. So it would, again, have to be one of those R-rated ones potentially because, again, inspired by Mortal Kombat, it doesn't shy away from the gore, nor does it shy away from stuff that's just plain disgusting. But in the right hands, it could be very interesting. And finally, there's one series in particular that I think has the potential to make absolutely great cinema if done well. A little something called Xenozoic Tales, though you might know it by its other title, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. This is set in a post-apocalyptic world where some sort of devastating event wiped out human civilization and completely reformatted the ecosystem of the Earth. Now, nature has overtaken most of the land. Humans have survived, but they're living in a slightly more primitive state, trying to rebuild their cities. And dinosaurs are back, and they're just roaming freely through the countryside. The main character is Jack Tenrek, a real man's man who proudly wears the title of mechanic, not just because he works on some recovered machines like his souped-up Cadillac fleet, but also because he takes his role of preserving the environment, the mechanics of nature, very seriously. In fact, more often than not, the dinosaurs aren't the antagonists of this series. It's usually humans who are either poachers or politicians trying to recover technology from the old world that they don't really understand and could actually bring about another apocalypse that are more often the people Tenrek has to deal with. And the dinosaurs are also portrayed in a very naturalistic way. They're animals. You don't want to get in their way, certainly. You don't want to anger them, but if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone, and some of them can even be domesticated. I also think that Cadillacs and Dinosaurs partly inspired a tabletop wargame called The Drowned Earth, because the premises are very similar, but I'm not saying it's stolen. In fact, The Drowned Earth looks really cool, and I really want to get into that game. But anyway, Xenozoic Tales could have real potential. I mean, just look at its alternate title, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Cool cars, cool creatures, together. What more could you want? Oh, and lest I forget, if we wanted to go the full-blown kaiju route and nobody was interested in adapting my book, there's always Dinosaurs Attack. Dinosaurs Attacks is the sister series to Mars Attacks, another set of trading cards which, if you get all of them, tell a sequential story with very well-made, yet also very gruesome art. And it just doesn't give a flip. It's a full-blown kaiju work, but the kaiju are all supposed to be dinosaurs. Some of them, though, are movie dinosaurs. There are quite a few references to, like, Godzilla and Gorgo and what have you. In fact, and this is a true story, Tim Burton was originally going to make Dinosaurs Attack in the 90s, but then he saw Jurassic Park, and as we already mentioned, Jurassic Park pretty much killed every other dinosaur movie, so he made Mars Attacks instead. However, kaiju movies are doing really well now, and Tim Burton is no longer trapped at Disney, so maybe he could dust this one off and take another stab at it? Just throwing that out there. So as you can see, there are plenty of existing dinosaur IPs that Hollywood could potentially look at. And of course, anyone can come up with an original idea that has dinosaurs in it. So, it will happen at some point, I'm sure. Somebody just has to come along and really get it right. and who knows who that will be or when it will happen. Of course, all I did was list the particular dinosaur media that came to my mind. I'm sure you guys have others that you might think are worthy of adaptations, so put them down in the comments. Let's really get the word out there of what we want to see. And until such time as we get that other dinosaur movie, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.